Hey everyone, Utkarsh from Spirit Bell Games here. Today I wanted to talk about the 3-action turn in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, its benefits, its drawbacks, and now that I have experienced it, could I go back to a system that only had one major action? The first thing is just the ease of learning. When actions are no longer categorized under major action, subordinate action, movement action, then you don't have to keep in mind which action falls under which category, and you don't have to keep in mind the rules of interchangeability. And then you also don't have to worry about, I do not have a subordinate action to use because my build kind of skipped it. When you only have equivalent actions, you don't have to remember the categories, you don't have to remember the exchange rates, and you have to worry less about filling them out. I will say that this can be taken one step further, which is what I hear DC 20 is doing by also folding in the reaction into the actions that you get at the start of a turn or at the end of a turn. But that system is not out yet, so I cannot comment on it. So we'll keep our discussion to Pathfinder 2nd Edition and its 3 equivalent actions. The second thing that I love about it is how it enables tactics. Yes, this does mean that there's more to think about in combat, because now you have to think about filling out each of the different actions. You have to worry about the trade-offs between moving versus staying in place. But on the plus side, if you are familiar with games like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you know that you get time between your turns in combat to think these things through. And in other systems where there are fewer things to think about in between my turns, as a player, I can get distracted. In this game, especially if the fight is difficult, which is easy to do without making fights deadly, it keeps me engaged. In games where there's only one major action that occurs on a turn, once you've picked what you're going to do there, you don't really have to think about your upcoming turn anymore, unless the situation changes drastically, which it still could. Whereas in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, once you've picked the main thing you're going to do on your turn, usually it's going to be either a 1-action activity or a 2-action activity, you still have another third or maybe second and third actions to try and fill. And you have, again, the ordering that matters. And because of that, it keeps players thinking. It keeps them engaged. As long as the combat has some amount of difficulty, and it's easy to make combat in Pathfinder that is difficult but not deadly, great thing that I love about the system, then players can stay engaged outside of their turn just by trying to play that 3-action game. The third thing that I really like about the 3-action turn is the snappiness of combat. I've played games where your movement can be broken up, which sort of makes it so that every square of movement or every 5 feet becomes a decision point. You get here and then do you continue moving? You get here and then do you continue moving? And that, along with the fact that sometimes you forget to use your subordinate action and the GM has to remind you, or you don't have one, but the GM still wants to check in on you, it creates all of these additional decision points and sometimes conversation points that hurts the pacing of combat. Instead, when you have 3 discrete actions where movement cannot be broken up between actions, then when the 3rd action is done, your turn is over. I, as a GM, no longer have to wait to ask you, hey, do you want to use a subordinate action? Hey, do you want to move anymore? I can just move on to the next person. Hey, Magus, it is your turn now. And they continue. It's a small thing, but when it keeps happening again and again, it makes combat just flow so well. The fourth thing that I really like about the 3-action turn, is how it makes improvisation easier. When players want to do something funky or fancy, I have a few different tools now in my toolkit for improvisation. I can ask them to spend multiple actions, right? I can say, hey, this jump attack that you want to just come up with right now, you're not jumping far up, so it's not like you need the sudden leap feat. You're just trying to do something cool here. Let's make it a 2-action activity. Because I have those 3 equivalent actions, I can do this stretchy kind of improvisation where, okay, this thing that you want to do may take 2 actions, or this special thing you want to do may take 3 actions, but it could give you a circumstance bonus to your roll. So I really like having these improvisation toolkit, this stretchiness across actions, which lets me make judgment calls during the game to let my players do cool things. The 5th thing that I like about the 3-action turn in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is how it enables class disparity. In games where you have one major action, the disparity across classes can only be implemented, mostly be implemented just by how they use that one action. Whereas when you have multiple equivalent actions, you can have class disparity across how well they use these actions. So in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, for example, you can have the Magus and the Kineticist classes that can use up the full action budget that they have on a turn quite easily. In fact, in the Magus's case, it may seem like they could use a few more actions per turn, whereas in the Kineticist case, it's more of a Lego style building block where you build your actions by combining different impulses. But then on the other side, you can have someone like the monk, who is designed with such strong action compression that they can now supplement their other actions with skill actions, with archetype actions. And they are not powerful just in raw terms, in terms of damage. It needs maybe 1 to 2 actions per turn, and then beyond that, it's free. So its damage and power can be on the lower side, but its flexibility, action flexibility, can be high. I like that disparity exists. This is also why I don't see the skill feats and the skill action system as being necessary for every character, because I think that some of that is taken into account in terms of the power budget of the class itself. I don't think it's a design flaw that the Magus does not have actions to spare to use in skill feats. What has happened is because of the variance that's possible in action flexibility, the Magus is just a class that uses its full 3 actions to deliver raw damage. And finally, the 6th and final thing that I really like about the 3-action turn in Pathfinder is the way that it works with conditions. In other games, if your major action gets taken away, you feel like there's almost nothing significant you can contribute to combat. Whereas when you have 3 equivalent actions and you are slowed 1 or stunned 1, and one of those actions goes away, now you feel restricted, but it's unlikely that you can contribute to combat at all. I also like how Quickened works. Quicken just gives you 1 extra action, normally limited to something specific. But again, when you have 3 equivalent actions, adding 1 extra is not the massive power boost it would be if you had just 1 major action and then you got a whole another one. Okay, so far we've discussed all of the positives. Let's talk about some of the negatives. The main negative that Pathfinder 2nd Edition has to contend with, which is also why other systems use a major action and subordinate action system, is the question of what to do with the most powerful action, a strike or a spell. In a 3-action turn, should you be allowed to strike 3 times? Should you be allowed to cast 3 spells? And the way to resolve that issue, the way to make other actions seem viable, like interact or move, use an item, avert gaze, if anyone has used it, it seems like the way to make those things viable is by having some way to limit how many times you can do the most powerful thing. The multiple attack penalty says that when you attack the second time in a turn, unless you have a special feature, you'll take a -5 to hit, which is big. And if you attack a second time, you'll take a -10 to hit, which is massive and almost not worth attacking with a -10. This is an objection that a fair few people have, where they see the multiple attack penalty, which disincentivizes striking 3 times, as being not worth the positives that are gained from the 3-action turn. Similarly, there's argument that people make that the mages that rely on 2-action spells cannot meaningfully engage with the 3-action turn. I have my issues with that particular argument because usually mages get something in return, which is a whole lot of choice in how they can approach a single turn. But these are concerns that you should be aware about if you are considering going into the system. But given all of the positives that I've listed, the fact that it's easier to learn and keep track of, that it has all of these like tactical considerations that makes it a more interesting game, the fact that it keeps combat snappy, that it's easier to improvise, that it provides class disparity in design, and that the conditions can make use of the actions without feeling punishing. I do think that the trade-off here is still in the favor of going with this multiple equivalent action route, even if it means adding a couple of mechanics to disincentivize the most powerful actions repeatedly. Now, I will say I have seen turns where 3 strikes have worked out wonderfully, and I have personally had a turn where I cast 3 spells on the same turn, and it was great. I didn't use quickened spell either. It was jump, heal, heal, and it was one of the best turns I've had. So these things are possible in the system if you can work the system to your favor. And so I find that even the negatives can be worked around with sufficient character building. So that is my take on the 3-action turn. Now, I do still have to answer the clickbaity question from the start. Can I go back to a system which has just a major action and subordinate actions? And yes, the answer is yes. If needed, I can definitely go back and play those kind of systems. I'm looking forward to the release of Draw Steel, and I am actively running games of Cloudbreaker Alliance, which uses a similar style. But I still wish that those systems had multiple equivalent actions on their turn. I've seen all of the improvements that it brings, and if I were to design a game, I would do it this way. I really can't wait for DC20 to come out and for others to take these innovations even further. But what do you think? Do you prefer the one major action systems? Do you think that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is just the Goldilocks of having the right amount of action points, not too many, not too little? Or do you prefer something more like DC20 where there are no reactions even, everything is just the actions assigned to you on your turn? Let me know down in the comments below. But for now, this is me signing off, wishing you all engaging games.